Hello and welcome to God Winging It with me, Roger Michael Klang. I'm not gonna wing it today. I just can't do it. My main source is the Swedish independent news agency SR Ekot. JD Vance said about the Ayatollah and Iran, when you can't even talk to the person who is in charge of the country, that makes all of this much more complicated. End quote. So the Ayatollah should go to the UAE, Saudi Arabia, or whatever country the US deems a proper and safe place for discussions. Will Trump be there? I mean, it's not like the abductor of another nation's state leader, the US being the abductor. How to put it? Is trustworthy? Is it? I am, of course, referring to the abducted Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro. Iran's vice chairman said, within a month, we will read the funeral prayer for Donald Trump, the USA, and its allies. End quote. I have only one thing to say. Baghdad Bob! If not Iran had been such an obstinate player, I might have taken their side against America. But with statements like that, go fuck yourselves. This said, it is proven without any doubt that it was never about supporting the Iranian people in their protest against the Iranian regime. Those protests ended a while ago. Yet, America is pursuing their everlasting idea of toppling the Iranian regime. It was always about toppling the Ayatollah and the regime, even during Biden's and Obama's time in office. But not so under the Bush administration. They instead invaded Saddam Hussein's Iraq, the then number one state enemy to the US. But Iran and the US agree on that negotiations will continue. They both perceive that they have something to win by it: time. It is not because they are eager to negotiate a lasting peace on equal terms. No, no, God forbid. And wouldn't you like to buy US/Donald backed digital stablecoin cash? Today only $9.99. What could go wrong? By all means, drop all your assets into the Donald's money pit. Buy now. Or, if you like me think that Donald Trump is less trustworthy than a rattlesnake, don't trust. Calling them stable coins makes me even more suspicious than if they had called them gamble coins. But a gamble coin it is. Even Swedish financial institutions are jumping on the bandwagon. Probably not because they think it is a good idea, but because they risk losing money to the US controlled stablecoins if they don't. So they have their own stablecoins. They want to have that. Tesla. What about it? Well, for one thing, Elon Musk is much more dependent on the European market than the European market is dependent on him. This goes even more so for Elon's dependence on Sweden. You see, the electrical grid in the US is to 85% reliant on fossil fuels. That is why Elon Musk established Tesla in Sweden in the first place, because we have got a lot of hydroelectric power plants and wind farms and nuclear power. Contrary to many Swedes believe, we are an energy abundant nation. So we have actually got Elon by his balls. Otherwise, he would have left the Swedish market by now, nearly 2.5 years into a conflict with the union IF Metall that has caused him so much grievance. Wouldn't he? And also, China is horning in on Elon's Tesla. They are setting the standards for electrical cars as we speak. And former Norwegian State Minister Torbjørn Jagland, female royalties in Norway and Sweden, a female financial profile, and Jeffrey Epstein's former Swedish girlfriend and Miss Sweden award winner in 1980 are all suspiciously prevalent in the Epstein files right now. How come? This is how it is. The US administration is desperate to shift focus from themselves to the Scandinavian countries because their plans is to, once again, like in Sweden in the 1990s, when we had our isolated, deep, deep financial crisis exclusive to Sweden, suck up our market for money and assets and artificially make a cardiopulmonary resuscitation on their own dying market. The US is tired and needs to retire. Baghdad Bob and all that. Well, it's not going to happen. Let me tell you what is going to happen. The US administration will collapse under the pressure of the Epstein files and drag the US financial system down with them. Why do I think that? Well, the US administration are perverts. They are in the files. They are, unlike the Swedish girls involved, male perpetrators. I'm not saying that there are none involved in the pedophile ring that are Scandinavian men, but vastly many more are American and from elsewhere than Scandinavia. Even so, if you take into consideration that America is many times more populated than Scandinavia, I bet they have vacuumed their files of Scandinavian men involved in the pedophile ring and made them public already. It's very much deliberate. They did a similar thing against Sweden and Trump between 2019 and 2021 and the pandemic. I think we can ascertain that by now. Don't you think? They made us the scapegoat for not being able to handle the pandemic well in America. But Biden ended the bullying, or it petered out at the end of the pandemic. I've been critical to Biden during his presidency, but now I'm beginning to miss him. Also, other European nation citizens have been highlighted in the files, despite the vast, vast majority of prominent Americans involved. Even Keir Starmer, unfortunately, is painted out as associated with someone figuring in Epstein's circle of acquaintances. Keir Starmer isn't even in the files, for God's sake. Meanwhile, here in Europe, we are gladly pointing finger to anyone in our own countries remotely connected to Epstein, just like the American pedophile administration wants us to do. And in the meantime, the US president is still a pedophile. MAGA is abhorrent. They say they are going to make America great again, and then they gladly, or rather desperately, go and do the absolute opposite. I am being more and more convinced that the dying Roman Empire made a trump on the Scandinavians, that the Vikings were never rapists. Instead, they were portrayed as rapists. Due to the large population of the Roman Empire and the small population of the Viking nations, the Romans could make this an alternate truth. But the Viking nations managed to make sure that the Roman emperors were exposed as the perverts they were. Albeit there might have been Vikings that were rapists, there probably were, some of them, a few of them, but they were never even close to be a majority. Knowing my own people, if anything, the Viking leaders were less of perverts than most or all others. The Roman emperors, on the other hand. This said, Biden isn't a pervert, Obama isn't a pervert, probably not even George W. Bush is a pervert. They just, like all normal men and women, have certain basic sexual inclinations. Trump, on the other hand, Kaiser Nero. And to finish it, a pro-Kurdish person from the Rojava committee has placed a basket with apples with Hitler faces at Migration Minister, that's a joke, Johan Forsell's home. Johan Forsell is from the pointless moderate party. The pro-Kurdish person also placed a doll depicting an ISIS terrorist with a severed woman's head outside the Sweden aid minister Benjamin Dusa's home. And for this crime, the man, after pressure to the legal system from Forsell, is prosecuted for illegal threats. If that is what Johan Forsell can take, then why don't he just resign and make Sweden our favor? But I gave Forsell right in one aspect. The Rojava committee is delusional, and in the worst case scenario can put Sweden in a dire situation. Just like the Quran burner Rasmus Paludan and his cronies were delusional and did put Sweden and Swedes in danger. I reluctantly knew one of them. He's in jail for rape and narcotics crimes right now. He, like Donald Trump, is a narcissist and a rapist. Roger and out.